Hello, how are you? My name is Gaurav. I am a student of Vedic Astrology, and in this video I'm going to share combinations in your birth chart that indicate you are likely to attract a foreign spouse. I'd like to start by defining foreign. It could mean that your partner belongs to a foreign culture, a foreign country, or both. Now, foreignness can also be due to your unconventional choice, which could mean that you are either marrying someone who's significantly younger or older than you, or you are marrying someone who was married before, or you yourself have chosen to marry again. And lastly, all relationships that fall under alternative lifestyle also fall under the category of foreign spouse. So I've extended the meaning of foreign to also including all relationships that do not conform with societal norms, such as marrying someone very young, marrying someone who's married before, or marrying someone who's from the same sex. I'm going to share various examples in this video at the end, which would take into account all possibilities and would also help you understand the combinations that I'm going to share now very clearly. Before we begin, I'd like to build some context. Whilst you are trying to determine your time of marriage, or you're trying to predict the characteristics of your partner, or you're trying to assess the quality of your married life, we take into account the following factors: the seventh house ruler, the Dara Karaka, Venus, planets placed in the seventh house, the house related to marriage, and the planets aspecting the house of marriage. Now, all of the above are taken into account whilst you are trying to predict your time of marriage, which is something I've shared in the last video I've shared on this channel. Whilst you're trying to understand the characteristics of your partner, the ruler of the seventh house and the Dara Karaka are considered. It's important for you to understand the role these variables are playing. Venus signifies your desire, who you desire. So Venus plays, in my view, a different role than the ruler of the seventh house or the Dara Karaka. And lastly, the planets placed and aspecting the seventh house now determine the quality of your married life. What exactly is taking place in marriage? For example, if you find Sun's position there in the house of marriage, it can be that ego issues keep coming in the way. It might be that you are yourself unable to control your egotistical side, or you may run into a partner who is very egoistic. If Mars is there, for example, in the house of marriage, or is always aspecting the house of marriage, the couple may keep getting into arguments, or perhaps even unnecessarily, unhealthily competing with one another. If Saturn is there, there is likely to be late marriage. If Ketu is there, the person may have to wait for marriage until the time the person has built one's individuality. And Saturn and Ketu related combinations I've shared with you in the last video posted on how to predict time of marriage. Now, when Rahu is associated with the house of marriage, there's a very high possibility that you may attract a foreign spouse. Also, if the house of marriage is associated with the 9th house or the 12th house in some way, this also indicates that you're likely to attract a foreign spouse. So let's study all of these combinations now in more detail. Now, the first one is Rahu being the ruler of the house of marriage, which would be the case if you were born as a Leo ascendant. So that's the first one. If Rahu is placed in the house of marriage, second combination. And thirdly, if Rahu is placed in the third house or the 11th house, as from the third or the 11th house, Rahu would have an aspect on the house of marriage. Now, if we calculate the probability of Rahu's influence, either rulership, placement, or aspect, if we calculate the probability is 5 by 16, 1 by 12 for the ascendant, and if it's another ascendant, 11 by 12, and Rahu would then be occupying 3 places, either the 3rd, 7th or 11th. If you calculate the probability, you'd get to 5 by 16. So approximately 31% individuals might have Rahu's influence over the house of marriage. Now, there are more Rahu related combinations. Rahu in conjunction with Venus. This is a strong indication that you might desire a partner who is foreign to you. You may also be desirous of an alternative lifestyle. Rahu in conjunction with the 7th house ruler, the Dara, Karaka, are further indications that your partner can be foreign. Please also study the Navamsa chart, and we are going to study Rahu related combinations here too. Rahu being the ruler of the house of marriage in the Navamsa. Rahu present in the house of marriage in the Navamsa. We are not going to study aspects in the Navamsa chart. Rahu in the same sign as Venus in the Navamsa chart. Rahu in the same sign as the ruler of the house of marriage and the Dara Karaka. Now, these are all Rahu related combinations in your chart which can indicate a foreign spouse. Please keep in mind, foreign spouse does not only mean that your partner might come from a different culture. It can also mean different things which I've described earlier in this video. Now, let's study the role of the 9th house and the 12th house. The 9th house has to do with foreign cultures, and the 12th house has to do with foreign lands. So if the house of marriage is somehow linked to the 9th house or the 12th house, you may also be with a foreign partner. So let's study those combinations. If Venus, the ruler of the house of marriage, or the Dara Karaka, is placed in the 9th house or the 12th house in the main chart or in the Navamsa chart, then the probability is high that your partner can be foreign. Similarly, if Venus, the ruler of the 7th house, or the Dara Karaka are in conjunction with the 9th house ruler, the 12th house ruler in the main chart, or they occupy the same sign as the 9th house ruler or the 12th house ruler in the D9 chart, these combinations also indicate your partner can be foreign. Now let's go back to the main chart here. If the ruler of the house of marriage, the 7th house, is placed either in the 3rd house or the 6th house, this also indicates that the partner can be foreign. Why? The ruler of the 7th house, if counted 9 places away from the 7th house, you'd reach the 3rd house. So if the ruler of the 7th house is placed 9 places away from the 7th house, which would be the 3rd house, then the partner can be foreign. We are applying the same logic as the 9th house has to do with foreign cultures. Similarly, if you count 12 places from the 7th house, you'd eventually reach the 6th house. And this is a combination I found in the life of Srinivasa Ramanujan. He had the ruler of the 7th house placed 12 places away in the 6th house. Now, in his case, even though his partner wasn't foreign, he had to move away from his home country to build his career. So there was temporary physical separation. So the 12th house association could also mean a temporary physical separation in your relationship. There has to be a foreign element associated with your marriage. Either it's a case that your partner comes from a foreign country, or it's the case that you are moving abroad after marriage. The 12th house association can have multiple interpretations. The 9th house association can also mean that you've met your partner through an institute of learning. For example, you go abroad for studies and you meet someone there. I have few more combinations. If Venus or the Dara Karak is the ruler of the 9th house or the 12th house, this could also indicate a foreign partner. Furthermore, if you were born as a Taurus or a Scorpio ascendant, then the ruler of the 7th house and the 12th house is going to be the same planet. For a Taurus ascendant, it's going to be Mars. For a Scorpio ascendant, it's going to be Venus. In that scenario too, the partner can be foreign. And lastly, if the 7th house ruler, the Dara Karak or Venus, is placed in the nakshatra ruled by Rahu, this can also lead to a foreign partner. I have now shared all possible combinations. I'm now going to apply these combinations in the following examples. Let's do that. So the first example I have is of Matt Damon. If you study his chart, Moon is the ruler of the house of marriage, Mercury is the Dara Karak. And that's the methodology. If you're trying to assess who this person's partner can be, please always study the Lord of the 7th house and the Dara Karak. Now if you study Moon's position, it's in the 12th house. Mercury is there in the 9th house. If you study the Navamsa chart, I find Moon in the 9th, Mercury in the 12th. You see the Lord of the 7th house and the Dara Karak are having a very strong association with the 9th and the 12th house. This already is a very strong indication that he's likely to attract a foreign partner. Moreover, the Dara Karak is also the 9th house ruler. Moon, the ruler of the house of marriage, is in the same Navamsa, the same sign as Rahu in the D9 chart. These are further indications that he's likely to attract a partner who was going to be foreign to him. We know he was married to someone who was born in Argentina. He was married on 9th of December, the year 2005. Let's try to identify the reasons behind this particular time of marriage for him. Firstly, he was 35. Naturally, he was married late. What could be the reason? The ruler of the house of marriage in his chart, if you see, is in the same sign as Saturn in the D9 chart. This, in my view, is the reason for late marriage. And in the video I had posted on how to predict your time of marriage, I had specifically mentioned Rahu and Venus's phase, Rahu and Venus's dashas. He was married under Rahu's Mahadasha and Venus's Antardasha. It's even more significant in his case, as Venus in his chart is also the ruler of the house of marriage in the D9 chart. In fact, right throughout this Rahu and Venus's phase, he was in a relationship with his wife, and then within this Venus's Antardasha he was married, and I hope this example made sense. Okay, so the next example I'm taking is of George Clooney. He in his chart, if you see, has the ruler of the house of marriage and the Dara Karak as Moon. Now this is very important. If the 7th house ruler and the Dara Karak is one planet, it becomes very easy to identify who this person is likely to attract. If you study its position, you can very accurately and very clearly determine who the partner can be. In his case, Moon is there in the 1st house in the nakshatra of Uttarashadha. Moon Uttarashadha together, in my view, is an indication that the person can be a social worker. If you go through the meaning of Moon and the nakshatra of Uttarashadha, I've posted a video on that nakshatra on this channel, you'll understand why have I arrived at this conclusion. Now if we study Uttarashadha's planetary ruler, it's Sun, and Sun in his chart is there in the nakshatra of Bharani. This is an indication that his partner can be a lawyer, as law is directly related to Bharani. So please try to understand the methodology too. I have started from the ruler of the house of marriage. I've studied its nakshatra, and now I'm studying its nakshatra's planetary ruler, which is Sun Bharani. This to me is an indication that the partner can come from a background in law. Now Moon in the Navamsa chart is in the 11th sign in the 7th house. This is an indication that the person's work can be humanitarian. We know that his partner is a human rights lawyer, and I hope the analysis so far has made sense. Now, what could be the reasons that his partner is foreign to him? We know that his partner was born in Lebanon. I find Rahu as the ruler of the house of marriage in the Navamsa. I also find Moon and the 12th house ruler in conjunction in the main chart. These are my reasons why his partner is foreign to him. If we study his partner's characteristics, Moon and Saturn are forming a conjunction. In fact, Moon and Saturn occupy the same sign in the D9 chart. This is an indication that she is likely to be a tall, lanky person, a very Saturn-like physical trait. But since Moon is the ruler of the house of marriage, she's also going to show Moon-like qualities, a very charming, attractive face, along with a tall, lanky build. He was married late September the year 2014, so he does have combinations for late marriage. Saturn in his chart is a ruler of the house of marriage in the Navamsa chart, and I also find Saturn having an aspect on the house of marriage in the main chart. So these are the reasons behind late marriage. He was married right at the end of Jupiter's Mahadasha. In the video I've posted on how to predict time of marriage, the first thing that I'd mentioned was to check if a person is going through a Mahadasha change. Right at the end of this time frame, he was married. Incidentally, at that time, Jupiter was also transiting over the house of marriage. I hope all of this has made sense why his partner is who she is. Why is she foreign, and why was he married late, and why was he married specifically at that time? Okay, I'd like to now share some combinations which signify the partner can be significantly elder to you. If the Dara Karaka or the 7th house ruler is Saturn, or if Venus, the 7th house ruler, or the Dara Karaka are placed in the nakshatra ruled by Saturn. The nakshatras ruled by Saturn are Pushya, Anuradha and Uttarabhadrapada. Or if the 7th house ruler, Venus or the Dara Karaka, is placed in the nakshatra of Jyeshtha. Jyeshtha has been described as the eldest as per Vedic mythology. So all of these combinations could indicate that your partner can be significantly elder to you. Similarly, let's study a few combinations which indicate that your partner might be younger to you. If the 7th house ruler or the Dara Karaka is either Mercury or Mars, or if the 7th house ruler, Venus or the Dara Karaka are placed in nakshatras ruled by Mercury and Mars. Mercury and Mars indicates youthfulness. And lastly, if the 7th house ruler, the Dara Karaka or Venus, is in the nakshatra of Ashwini, as Ashwini also signifies youthfulness. So together these combinations could indicate that your partner can be significantly younger than you. Now I'm analyzing Roger Federer's chart. He has the ruler of the house of marriage and the Dara Karaka as Saturn, which is in the 2nd house in the nakshatra of Hasta. And Hasta is directly linked to tennis players. Any profession that requires the skill of hands is directly related to Hasta. It's sort of an explanation why his partner is also a tennis player. Let's try to find more information. Why is his partner foreign to him? She was born in Slovakia. Firstly, Rahu is the ruler of the house of marriage in the main chart. Saturn, which is ruling the house of marriage, and the 9th house ruler, they occupy the same sign in the D9 chart. Together, these are strong indications that his partner can be foreign to him. And when Saturn is the ruler of the house of marriage, we've just learned that the partner can also be elder. which we find, as in his case his partner is a few years elder to him. If you study his date of marriage, he was married on 11th of April the year 2009. At that time Saturn was transiting over the nakshatra of Purva Phalguni. From early February the same year, Saturn began its transit over this nakshatra. Now this is unique, as Saturn's transit over any nakshatra comes after 30 years. So Saturn's strong association with the house of marriage and its transit over Purva Phalguni is the reason behind his date of marriage, and I hope this made sense. Now I'm going to share a very interesting example of Emmanuel Macron. We know he is married to someone who is more than 20 years elder to him. So we'd have to now find the reasons why that is. His house of marriage is ruled by Moon, the Dara Karaka, his sun. Moon in his chart, if you study, is in the 4th house in the main chart, and Sun is in the 4th house in the Navamsa chart. Now this strong 4th house association is an indication that his partner could belong to his culture, his home culture, as the 4th house has to do with our cultural upbringing. The 4th house, incidentally, is also directly to do with school education. Now this is interesting, a strong 4th house association, and both of them also met in a school. His partner, his wife, was his school teacher. If we study a bit further, I find Moon in the nakshatra of Bharani, which is ruled by Venus, and Moon in the Navamsa is in the sign of Libra, ruled by Venus. Sun is in Mula in the main, but Sun in the Navamsa is in the sign of Taurus, ruled by Venus. So the Lord of the 7th house and the Dara Karak are placed in the nakshatra and signs ruled by Venus. So Venus is very strongly linked to his partner. Venus's Jyeshta's position, and Jyeshta signifying the eldest, is my reason why his partner is significantly elder to him. Now he was married late October the year 2007. He firstly does not have any major combinations for late marriage. He was married under Mars's Mahadasha and Venus's Antadasha. Mars is in the 7th, Venus is in the 11th. Venus, the 7th house and the 11th house together have created a strong possibility of marriage. The reasons behind this I've shared in the last video. The point I'm making here is that his time of marriage is making sense. The other interesting things I'd like to share about his life: Venus's rulership of his career house and its presence there in the 11th house in Jyeshta is also an indication that he could have built his career in the finance sector, as the 11th house and Venus together signify money and therefore a career in finance, which is true. Before he became a politician, he was a general inspector of finance, and later he was working as an investment banker. Now I also took the liberty to study his partner's chart. She has Saturn as the ruler of the house of marriage. Sun is the Dara Karak. Sun in her chart is in Ashwini, and in the first sign, the sign of Aries, which is the same sign Sun is occupying even in the Navamsa chart. This is a very strong indication that her partner was always going to be a person who occupies a position of power, a political figure. Sun is exalted in the nakshatra of Ashwini. Sun, the Dara Karak in Ashwini, Sun in Aries, and the ruler of the house of marriage placed in the nakshatra of Chitra, ruled by Mars. These are all indications to me from an astrological point of view that she was going to attract a partner significantly younger than her. Rahu is the ruler of the house of marriage in her chart, which is an indication that she was likely to have a foreign experience in her personal life. She was married before, and that's the foreign experience she had. Let's study when she was married before. She was married under Venus's Mahadasha and Rahu's Antardasha in 1974. You'd understand hopefully why was she married at this time under Rahu's Antardasha. Rahu is the ruler of the house of marriage in her main chart. In late August the year 2007, when she was married to Emmanuel Macron, she was about to begin the Mahadasha of Rahu. The beginning of Rahu's Mahadasha is a strong indication of a new life chapter for her, particularly related to her personal life, as Rahu is the ruler of the house of marriage. I hope her time of marriage, this one and the first time she was married, had made sense. Now Jupiter in her chart, in her career house in Kritika, this specific combination belongs to educators. This indicates why was she working as a school educator previously. Catherine Zeta-Jones is another example. She has Venus as the 7th house ruler. Moon is the Dara Karak. Venus incidentally is also ruling the 12th house, so she is a Scorpio ascendant. This already is an indication that her partner can be foreign to her. Venus and Rahu incidentally are together in the Navamsa chart, and Moon, which is the Dara Karak, is the 9th house ruler. These are all indications that her partner is likely to be foreign to her. She was born in Wales and her partner was born in the United States. Now, Moon in her chart is in the nakshatra of Uttarabhadrapada, and Moon and Saturn are together in the Navamsa chart. Saturn's influence on the Dara Karak, in my view, is the reason why her partner is significantly elder to her. If we study Venus and Moon's position in her chart in the main and the Navamsa, Venus is in the 5th sign in the main, Moon the Dara Karak is in the 5th sign in the Navamsa. This is an indication that her partner can come from an artistic background. Acting is directly related to the sign of Leo. So this gives us an insight into who her partner could be. We all know she was married to a film star. She was married late November the year 2000. At that time she had Jupiter and Saturn's transit over the house of marriage. Jupiter incidentally in her chart is having an aspect on the house of marriage, which in my view created an opportunity for her for marriage, as Jupiter and Saturn's transit over any house comes after many years. So this was a unique transit which created the possibility of marriage for her. So I also looked at her partner's chart, Michael Douglas. The house of marriage is ruled by Mars. Venus is the Dara Karak. Now Mars and Venus, both of them are placed there in the nakshatra of Chitra, ruled by Mars. The 7th house ruler itself is Mars, and the 7th house ruler and the Dara Karak are placed in the nakshatra ruled by Mars. These are strong indicators that he was likely to attract a partner significantly younger to him. Venus, which is the Dara Karak, incidentally is also in the sign ruled by Mars, which is another indication that his partner could be younger to him. He has the 7th house ruler in the 12th house, which is an indication that he could attract a partner who's foreign to him, which is the case. Let's study the time of marriage, which was late November the year 2000. He married right at the beginning of Rahu and Venus's phase. Venus in his chart is the Dara Karak. Venus incidentally is also the ruler of the house of marriage in the Navamsa chart. Rahu and Venus's phase can be a phase when a person wants to fulfill one's desires, and the person may also give in to desire, and therefore I had specifically mentioned Rahu and Venus's phase as a very promising phase for marriage, as we all desire companionship. And I hope him choosing to marry at that time has made sense under Rahu, and Venus's phase in particular has made sense to you, and I hope you're able to see the reasons why he would choose to be married at that time. Michael Caine is another example I'd like to share with you. He has the ruler of the house of marriage as Jupiter. Sun is the Dara Karak. Jupiter is in Purva Falguni, Sun Purva Bhadapada. Jupiter is in the first house in the Navamsa. Sun, which is the Dara Karak, is in the ninth house in the Navamsa chart. Now, what are the reasons for him attracting a partner who was foreign to him? Venus, firstly, in his main chart, which would always remain a natural signifactor of a wife in a man's chart, is in the ninth house. Venus and Rahu are in conjunction. This is an indication that he was desirous of a foreign spouse. He wanted to be with someone foreign to him. The seventh house ruler Jupiter, since it's placed there in the main chart, in the third house. So if we count, it's 9 places away. This is one of the combinations I had shared with you earlier. And the Dara Karak is in the ninth house, which is Sun in the Navamsa chart. Together, these are indications that his partner can be foreign to him. Now, he was married before. Venus and Rahu's conjunction could be an indication of the person is unable to find a suitable partner the first time around, or perhaps desires another partner later. So he was married very early in his life, at 21 in early April 1954, which was right at the beginning of Jupiter's Mahadasha, which I hope you are able to understand why he would start a new chapter at the beginning of a new Mahadasha. And then he was later married on 8th of January 1973. At that time, he had Sun, Mercury, Venus, and most importantly, Jupiter and Rahu, all of them transiting over the seventh house. The transit of 5 planets over the house of marriage on that specific date, around that specific date, created a possibility of marriage for him in 1973, and I hope his chart analysis made sense. I'm now taking the example of Priyanka Chopra. She has Mars as the ruler of the house of marriage, Sun is the Dara Karak. See, Mars and Sun-like partner that she was likely to attract indicates the partner can also be having a medium-sized body, not a very tall person. Her partner isn't very tall. Moon in her chart is in the first house in the nakshatra of Rohini. This is an indication that she is going to be a very attractive person, as Rohini is considered to be the most beautiful nakshatra. Now, Mars in his chart is placed there in the nakshatra of Chitra. Mars in the Navamsa is in the sign of Virgo, ruled by Mercury. These are indications that her partner can be younger to her. Now, what are the reasons that she has attracted a partner who is foreign to her? She was born in India and her partner was born in US. Mars, which is the 7th house ruler, is also ruling the 12th house. She is born as a Taurus ascendant. The 7th house ruler is in conjunction with the 9th house ruler. The 9th house ruler, incidentally, is Saturn, which is also the reason behind late marriage. The Dara Karak and the 9th house ruler, they are together in the Navamsa chart. And in her chart, I also find the ruler of the 4th house placed 12 places away, which is an indication that she was going to build her life, her home in particular, on a permanent basis in a foreign land. So together, they explain why her partner could come from a foreign country and why she might build her life in a foreign country. She might build her home in a foreign country. Now, she was married 1st December the year 2018. She's recently married at the age of 36. Saturn in her chart is in conjunction with the 7th house ruler. It's also aspecting the house of marriage, which makes sense that she was married this late. Saturn's aspect alone is a strong indication that she was going to be married late. And she was married under Jupiter and Venus's Antardasha. See, Venus's Antardasha is always a promising phase for marriage. Incidentally, at that time, Jupiter along with Sun and Mercury together were transiting over the house of marriage, which created the possibility of marriage for her. Now, the last example I have for you is of Ellen DeGeneres. The first thing in her chart is Rahu's presence in the 9th house, which is an indication that he can have an unconventional belief system, which is the main reason, in my view, behind her homosexuality. If you were to study the time when she openly declared that she is gay, it was April 1997. She was going through Rahu's Antardasha. I can understand why she would have felt the need to openly declare her sexual preference under Rahu's Antardasha. She has Sun as the ruler of the house of marriage, Mars as the Dara Karaka. Sun is placed there in the 12th house along with Venus, and Sun and the 9th house ruler are also in conjunction. Venus is the ruler of the 9th house. So these are very strong indications that her partner can come from a foreign country. Her partner, we all know, was born in Australia. Now, why was her partner young? Firstly, the Dara Karaka is Mars, and Mars and the ruler of the house of marriage, both of them are together placed in the sign of Aries in the Navamsa, ruled by Mars. This is a strong indicator that her partner could be very Mars-like, very youthful in character, and that's my reasoning why she could have attracted a partner who was significantly younger than her. Now, she was married at the age of 50 in mid-August, the year 2008. The reason for late marriage is Saturn's presence in the 10th house. The person feels, hey, my career takes so much of my time that I do not have time for a relationship, let alone marriage. And this, in my view, is the reason behind late marriage, Saturn's presence in her career house. Now, she was married under Mars's Mahadasha and Saturn's Antardasha. Incidentally, on the day of marriage, Saturn was transiting over the nakshatra of Purva Falguni. So Saturn's aspect over marriage house, Saturn's Antardasha and Saturn's transit over Purva Falguni and the house of marriage together created a strong possibility. In fact, on that day, there were 4 other planets, including Venus, which were also transiting over the house of marriage, which created a very strong possibility of marriage. And I hope her chart analysis made sense. Hello, thank you for watching this video till the very end. I know I've shared many examples. I started off sharing a few combinations, some theoretical information at the beginning. I know this might have been a difficult video to follow, so if you have a few questions, please post your questions in the comments section and I'll try to respond as early as possible. If you like to stay in touch, please subscribe to this channel. This is it. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.